Welcome back to the Crypto Ski Conversation. We're going to jump straight into the content here. It's from Digital Asset Investor. He says, no wonder why Gary isn't worried about potential money laundering in the Ethereum ICO. Hester Pierce, when blow the whistle? New day, anyone? So let's take a quick listen into this clip.
Gensler, the head of the SEC, is someone who was heavily involved in the Russia hoax. In fact, he was the guy who helped to finance the Russia hoax. He was the treasurer of the Clinton campaign back in 2016. We investigated all of this in 17 and 18. And look, we found out that he was the guy who made the payments to a law firm who then moved it on to Fusion GPS. I think all of your viewers know that story. Now, look, how can a guy who I investigated, who clearly funded a dossier to target Donald Trump owns True Social, as I think most people know, how can that guy be in charge of this? But look, just to go even deeper, if you want to go know how deep this gets, it happens to be that Peter Strzok, who we also investigated, who was the FBI man in charge, who actually investigated the Russia hoax and helped to create the Russia hoax in many ways, and who was ultimately fired from the FBI. His wife also is one of the top people at the SEC. Now, look, we've asked simple questions. Why are these people involved? How can they possibly be unbiased at the SEC if they're people that we have had under investigation or related to people? In any normal world, you would recuse from this. Any lawyer involved. I mean, look at all the people that recuse themselves in typical business deals.
The SEC chairman was actually part of that.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. I mean, You can't make this up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a guy that we had under investigation, that we proved clearly that he's the guy that helped to launder all this money through a law firm to pay for the documentation, the Steele dossier. And how is this guy not recused? That's the point that we're making here. There's several people. How did all these people that were involved in the Russia hoax, who lied to the American people for so long, are now in charge of the SEC, deciding basically who can become public and who cannot? I think it's hard for my former colleagues to not see what's right in front of them.
Well, look.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we all can agree to that. It's just shameful. Mr. Huber, or formerly known as Stefan Huber, says, quote, Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that is not a security because there is no website. Gary Gensler, chairman of the SEC, explained the SEC's new token framework. So then Library hits it on the head right here. Goes, people called us crazy for saying that the SEC thought everything other than Bitcoin was a security, but now Gensler is saying it publicly. And he highlights it right here. Quote, everything other than Bitcoin, Gensler told me. It's just, it's crazy, man. This isn't anything new from us. John Deaton was saying this from the beginning when the lawsuit dropped. This was bigger than Ripple and XRP. This was for the entire industry, and he was shouting that from the rooftops. I like this thread that Ryan Selkis had put up today. John Deaton's response to it says, "We will not get regulatory clarity before." Let me get my glasses real quick. We will not get regulatory clarity before the first quarter of 2025. Best case scenario is likely the summer of 2025. This is a fact, not an opinion. A well-organized, adequately funded, and strategic campaign is a must. And he says Ryan Selkis is over the target. So if we come over here, he says for 2023 and 2024, we'll need $100 million a year to hold the line on crypto in the U.S. until the next administration. What does a campaign for crypto look like? I'm assuming Biden does not run for re-election. 2, $1 million each for 50 unicorns and top funds, $100K for 250 healthy U.S. companies, $1,000 for 205,000 individuals. We can make it work. These are our hurricane insurance premiums, and they are critical. $25 million a year in soft money, exert influence in key congressional races, and nudge presidential candidates to softer crypto positions. This is a bare minimum starting point. $25 million a year in hard money shows polls that reveals voters actually care about crypto beyond nice to have. 4, and he says, here goes fourth. He says $25 million a year in trade association dues would double budgets for CCI, BA, and DeFi education fund. Best lobbying and trade groups we have for coordination, or our ragtag group. A $25 million a year to start suing the government for overreach wherever and whenever we possibly can. I mean, man, it should be interesting. And if John Deaton's saying we're gonna have to wait till 2025, I mean, what has he not been right about? I mean, it's just gonna be a waiting game to kind of see what's up. I mean, when he says this though, here's my question: That new day that Tom Emmer and, the Congress members and officials are saying that's coming. Like, is that what they're talking about? Is that new day in 2025? Or is it something that's, brewing, right now and it's getting ready to spill over into, actually more than just words in a letter? Is there actual action coming? That's my question. WheezyX had put this up. He's responding to Coinbase's tweet here. Coinbase says, it's time to advance pro-crypto policy in all 435 congressional districts across the U.S., introducing Crypto 435, our campaign to grow the crypto advocacy community and share tools and resources to make your voice heard. Okay, so you've been watching this channel. You know how I feel about this, okay? So obviously, it's never too late, right? But then again, like, where were you when you had the ability to, first of all, if you weren't going to step up for Ripple and the XRP holders when these lawsuits dropped, whether there's Dragon Chain, Ripple, other companies that were, being attacked by the SEC, if you weren't going to step up then, you had the opportunity when you wanted to develop your LEND product. I think that's what it was called. And I'm talking about Brian Armstrong and Coinbase. When the SEC shot down their LEND product, when they were trying to do the right thing, go and have a conversation, figuring out how they could roll this thing out, but they were shot down, right? They didn't fight. They, in a sense, cowered, obviously for the sake of their business. That's what we've been speculating, but, they cowered. They didn't fight. But like now, you have, these tweet threads and, obviously you're starting this Crypto 435. It's like, okay, man, like we needed that earlier. And that's what WheezyX is saying here. Says, where was this when 75,000 were standing alone, taking on the corrupt regulators? Instead of joining, you enabled them by bending over from them and delisting XRP. While you think you're doing something, the XRP army is fighting the real fight. And that's just 100. And I had responded, just right over the target. We shall be rewarded. This is from Mr. Intuitive, Troomers Only. Blockchain Backer even hits it on the head right here. He goes, hey, exchanges. You know how you abandoned and ignored the XRP community while they've been fighting for the SEC for 2+ years without your help? Wrongs can always be righted. Do the right thing. We would love to be on the same team, but you put this wedge between us. Remove it. Right over the target. It's never too late. Do the right thing, and let's stand together as a crypto community, as one team, to go against those that are trying to stifle, hinder, and destroy this space. It's from Eleanor Terrett responding to Stuart Alderati's tweet where he's talking about Gary Gensler has again proclaimed that every cryptocurrency except Bitcoin is an unregistered security. Eleanor Terrett says, SEC statement on its crypto enforcement cases, quote, we are in active litigation in cases raising the application of our securities laws to crypto assets. Our enforcement division has been quite successful so far, and we look forward to additional court decisions on these issues. Meta law hits it on the head right here too. It says, Gensler's boycotts the SEC Speaks conference. So remember yesterday, Eleanor Terrett was talking about saying the SEC is not speaking at the annual conference, well known as the legal circles. As a result, the event called SEC Speak is being canceled. So he says Gary Gensler is boycotting it. For 50 years, this conference has been an annual tradition where the SEC chairman and division heads explain the SEC's objectives. The SEC officials would typically answer a few tough questions from those of us in the securities bar who represent clients before the SEC. That's what accountable government looked like. Yeah, that word says it all. That's what it looks like. It's not what Gary Gensler and the SEC's been presenting. JV had put up the interview. We covered some of it earlier. I highly recommend you come in and check out all these different clips that he put up. It says the SEC's corruption is spilling over all over the place. While Congress sits back and does nothing, when the new day. That's what we're talking about. I want to end on this one. I know this. I'm kind of rolling through this pretty quick, but I got to get going. It's from Digital Asset Investor. Says, translation: Gary Gensler is a risk to national security. He confides in George Soros instead of Congress and the American people. New day coming, anyone? Let's take a quick listen into this.
How concerning is that from a security perspective, given your background on that and on counterterrorism and some of these other issues? You have special insight into this.
Yes, and I think the backdrop to this is that there's really a geopolitical context to all of this, and we have to make sure that we're not losing the forest for the trees. The geopolitical backdrop is that around the world there is now I don't know if it's a race, but there's certainly a march towards finding alternative ways for new digital financial infrastructure. Basically, how to do cross-border transactions in a way where you're not relying the same way on traditional banking infrastructure. That's happening, whether we want to like it or not. And it's not just China. Of course, China has its project, but other countries in the EU, the UK, Japan, other parts of East Asia are all trying to figure out a way to innovate with payments. Now, the geopolitical implication there is if there is an alternative financial infrastructure, if there are new rails and the U.S. doesn't have the same influence on that, is not sort of at the table when new standards are being laid, then that impacts U.S. economic statecraft. Sanctions, the ability to sanctions, the potency of our sanctions power comes from the centrality of the U.S. to the financial global infrastructure. So if that shifts, even if it shifts a little bit, doesn't mean that China is going to take over or that the yuan is going to displace the dollar. But if there's a viable new rail where sanctioned actors can now transact, that's trouble.
Very well spoken and hits it on the head. Just payments is obviously a sector, a major sector. Obviously, they're talking about, this new pipeline, this new infrastructure system, right? This new financial system, all this stuff, right? Payments is a huge industry. It's a huge sector within the crypto space. Obviously, Ripple, the company with digital XRP, that's something that they're attacking. That's one of their primaries, right? It's so huge. And the fact that he's saying, if the U.S. isn't at the table and they're not ready, nor are they willing to be, compliant, understanding, pretty much they're not willing to even have that conversation or implement. They're going to be left in the dust, and it's already happening. And here's my thing. The government is obviously, certain members in the government are obviously acting as, detriments to the crypto space in general, right? What if these so-called representatives, which we've been showing in our community, right? There's in this web, we're connecting dots and the web's only growing bigger. What if they're, they may not be in the back pockets, but what if they're a part of the different group? Obviously they got their own agenda. How is that going to affect not just crypto? How is that going to affect the United States? How is that going to affect, the global economy? And that's what he's saying, payments. Like if the U.S. doesn't pull their heads out of their butts, we're going to get left in the dust. And he says it can happen just a little. And that's just enough to cause that ripple effect. No pun intended there. But I'm going to end it there. Actually, no, let me check CoinGecko. We're currently sitting at a $1.12 trillion market cap. Bitcoin sitting at 23,571. Ethereum sitting at 1653. And then XRP sitting at 38 cents. We're currently sitting in neutral at 51. Yeah, that's what we have. Just a waiting game to kind of see, how everything unfolds. I wonder if we're going to hear some more information on, when it comes to the SEC and, Congress coming after them and holding them accountable. All this litigation that's happening. Just going to be a waiting game. Make sure you come to the Crypto is Key Conversation YouTube channel. Subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at CryptoIsKey1. Really appreciate your support out there, you guys. With all that being said, stay strong out there. Be safe.